the technique of factoring trinomials, and factoring trinomials is the most common factoring that we'll encounter in an algebra course. And what a trinomial is just a polynomial with three terms. So here we have, for example, x squared minus 5x plus 6. And again, I think it's important for students to remember factoring does what? It turns addition and subtraction expressions into multiplication expressions. Okay, so for this first one, what the trick is, we need to look at these two numbers, negative 5 and 6. And the thought process is I need two things, a and b, that multiply to give me 6 and add to give me negative 5. Okay, and this is the only guesswork involved. So I start thinking of things that multiply to give me 6. For example, 1 and 6, well, those won't add up to negative 5, so that doesn't work. And in fact, since it's negative, I need to probably get two negative numbers. So if I do negative 1 and negative 6, that definitely multiplies to give me negative 6. But they don't add to what I need to get. After a while, though, I might stumble upon the correct one. Negative 2 and 5. Negative 2 and negative 3 multiply to give me positive 6, add to give me negative 5. Once I've figured out those two numbers, it's just a matter of saying x minus 2 times x minus 3, and there it is. It's factored. And if you don't believe me, try multiplying this out. When I multiply it out, I get x squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 6, which cleans up to be exactly what we started with, which implies we got the right answer. Okay, so let's try this again. This time we have y squared minus 9y plus 8. And again, the thought is I need two things that multiply to give me 8, and they have to add up to give me a negative 9. So you can start thinking, well, how about a 4 and a 2? Nope, that doesn't work. And the fact that it's negative, they have to add up to be negative, makes me think maybe I should have two negatives. So maybe I should do negative 4, negative 2. No, that won't work. How about negative 8 and negative 1? Those add up to give me negative 9. That is correct. So then my factoring would be y minus 8 times y minus 1. And there it is. If you doubt yourself, again, you can check it. Okay, now these are pretty straightforward because in both of these cases, the leading coefficient is just 1. What do you do if the leading coefficient is not 1? Alright, so let me show you these. So here I have c is 8a squared minus 2a minus 3. And this time, I don't need two things that multiply to give me negative 3 and add to give me negative 2. That won't work. I need to change my strategy. And the strategy is I'm going to multiply first the 8 and the negative 3, which will end up being negative 24. Now I need an a plus b that multiply to give me negative 24 and add to give me negative 2. So I start thinking of things that multiply to give me a negative 24. And this is the only guessing I have to do. So I start thinking, what about, how about negative 8 and positive 3? Well, they add up to give me negative 5, which is not what I need. And so after a while, I just keep guessing. Eventually, I'll stumble upon the right one. I think this is it. Negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. That adds to give me negative 2. So there it is. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rewrite this negative 2 now as a negative 6a plus 4a. And if you notice, if I add these two terms together, I just get back to where I started. So I haven't really changed anything. But where this is useful is this allows me to factor by grouping. So now I can group my first two terms together and my second two terms together. And when I do that, out of my first group, I can take out a 2a. And when I do that, I'm left with a 4a minus 3. In my second group, I don't have a common term. I can just take out a 1 maybe. And when I do that, I'm left with a 4a minus 3. And so now I have two terms that have a common factor. I can factor out the 4a minus 3. And in my first group, I'm left with a 2a. The second one, I'm left with a 1. This is a factor by grouping method. So there's my solution. And if you need help with factor by grouping, I did a video on that. And hopefully it can clarify the mystery. But anyway, we have now factored this. Okay, so let's look at this last one. We have 20y squared plus 21y minus 5. And we're going to do the same thing. And so here I need to first multiply 20 times negative 5, which gives me a negative 100. And now I need two things that multiply to give me negative 100 and add to give me 21. Alright, so we start thinking about things that multiply to give me negative 100. How about negative 10 and 10? That won't work. How about 25 and negative 4? I believe that'll work. Okay, so then I rewrite 20y squared plus 25y minus 4y minus 5. And so again, all I've done is replace 21y with this expression. I like this strategy because the only guesswork is right here. Once I've done that, everything else is just factor by grouping, and it's very, very straightforward. Okay, so here I'm going to group my first two terms together. And remember, I'm going to add a plus to group my second two terms together, so I don't have to distribute a negative. And out of my first group, it looks like I could take out a 5y. And when I do that, I'm left with a 4y plus 5. Out of my second group, since they're both negative, maybe I can take out a negative 1. And I'm left with a 4y plus 5. Now I have two terms and a common factor of 4y plus 5. And when I take that common factor out of my first group, I have 5y. And out of my second group, I have a negative 1. And there it is. We have now factored it. This thing is 4y plus 5 times 5y minus 1. And if you doubt yourself, you can always FOIL this out to make sure you get back to where you started. Factoring trinomials, again, is very, very useful. It's good to know and be able to understand this. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to help, and thanks for watching.